Hi y'all, my name is Mr. Chao, and welcome to Chao Time. I'm back with a watch that I've been curious about for quite some time. This is the Squale GMT 1545, and it's an homage of the Rolex GMT Master II, which is why I've been curious about it. I've both been curious actually about the brand, but also I've just really been wanting a GMT Master II, and surprise, surprise, I can't afford it. So I've been looking forward to this watch for a while, and I'm excited to do this review. If you're not aware, I have to buy and sell watches to make my reviews. So when I have to sell a watch, I put it on my Instagram page, which is linked below. If you want to check that out and see anything that you'd like, it would be a great support to the channel if you would buy it. But that's okay. If you can't, you can always just like and subscribe. The way I do reviews is by comparing watches to a set rubric, and that way I can try to stay as objective as possible. I then apply a value multiplier to even the playing field against other watches in different price ranges. And finally, I give a completely subjective opinion of the watch that is based on my own preferences, my own purchasing style, and what I'm looking for in my personal collection. Before we get into the watch though, I'd like to talk a little bit about what kind of watch it is, just to give context when we're looking at the rubric. This is a GMT watch. It's kind of a mix between a sports watch and an everyday watch. You could easily wear this into an office or just as an everyday watch. So let's get into it. We'll start with the function, feel, and visual appeal of the case and bracelet. Let's get the obvious out of the way. This case is a copy of the current generation Rolex GMT Master II. The lugs are a bit thinner, and the numerals on the GMT bezel are a bit thinner, and the crown is a bit larger, but otherwise it's strikingly similar. The brushing and polishing on the case are well executed, and the watch case sits comfortably on the wrist, with no sharp corners or edges digging into the flesh. The crown has a logo etched in and is oversized. I really enjoy operating this crown. The ridges make it very easy to screw in and out. The bezel is easy to turn, but ratchets counterclockwise like a dive timer rather than a GMT bezel. The bezel insert is ceramic, and the numerals are lume filled, but the lume doesn't last very long. It's mostly a gimmick for beautiful photographs. There is a flat sapphire crystal, just without the cyclops. The Jubilee style bracelet has solid end links and is well made. The clasp has a mix of stamped and milled parts and has 4 micro adjust holes. That's appreciated by someone like me who regularly gains and loses weight. The links articulate fully for maximum comfort and are held together by screws. Bonus! The case back is a fairly simple affair and has the typical specifications listed. There's not much to say about this case since it's basically just an homage, but I can say that much of it is well executed. 6.5 out of 10 for form, 8.5 out of 10 for function. Let's move on to that dial. Again, the homage continues. I suppose I'll start with the original designs from Squale. The date window has a box surrounding it, and the logo is, of course, Squale's own. The print underneath the hands are slightly different. The hands have the biggest changes. Instead of the classic Mercedes hands, this watch has fence post hands. The second hand has a rectangular pip and no counterbalance, and the GMT hand is red instead of green. I guess that's actually an homage of the GMT Master though. Even so, the piano black dial is gorgeous, and the simple round, triangle, and rectangular applied hour indices pop. This watch is supremely legible indoors. But alas, the lume is disappointingly weak on the interior as well, being almost completely illegible at 3 AM. Even at midnight after charging at 9 PM, the watch is nearly impossible to read. And I have pretty good eyesight. Just as with the case, it's basically just an homage, but I can say much of it is well executed. 7.5 out of 10 for form, 7 out of 10 for function. Let's move on to the movement. The movement in this watch is a Sellita SW330, which is a clone of the ETA 2892. That said, the movement is time-tested and a known commodity. It has the industry standard 28,800 beats per minute and has a power reserve of 42 hours. It has two complications, a 24-hour hand and date. Along with the bezel, the 24-hour hand can keep track of 3 time zones, but the GMT hand is not independently adjustable, so it is not a true GMT complication. 6 out of 10 for form, 5.5 out of 10 for function, giving us a total score so far of 41.5. Let's move on to the most subjective category, the brand's heritage and prestige. Squale was founded in 1946 by Charles von Buren, specializing in professional diving watch cases. They assembled their own watches with outsourced components, as was the norm at the time, but their major contribution to watchmaking came from their water-resistant cases, which they made for a wide variety of customers. Some of their more well-known customers include Blancpain, Doxa, and Tag Heuer. But as with almost all watchmakers from that era, the 80s were a difficult time, and the company stopped operations and was bought out. Today, they are enjoying a resurgence in wristwatch popularity, and as the saying goes, the rising tide lifts all boats. There are definitely those in the community that enjoy their watches, and their more unique pieces are getting some recognition by enthusiasts. That earns Squale a 4 out of 5 for brand heritage and prestige, bringing the total score to 45 out of 70. This particular model of the Squale with this bezel and bracelet can be found online new for about $825, but used ones come up on the forums and other places often enough for around $550 for a nearly new example, which I'll be using to calculate the value multiplier. That brings it to 1.595, and multiplied by the total score gives us a value score of 71.775. That places the watch in 17th overall, but all the way up in 6th place in value. So that brings me to my personal opinion on the watch. Well, this is actually the second Rolex Homage I've owned. I've also had the Jeannot Ocean Rover, and I prefer this one by quite a bit. I can say that this is a watch I really enjoy wearing. A lot of it does have to do with the fact that it has the same dimensions as the Rolex, which I really like. The case shape, the comfortable bracelet, the touch points, the dial, I like a lot about this watch. But I guess I should address the fact that it's an homage, and that I'm paying for something that is a copy of something else, and if that really bothers me as a person. And I can say that honestly most of the time it does not. The Rolex is just far out of my price range. I don't think I'm wearing this to get other people to think that I have a Rolex, or for me to feel like I'm flaunting it or something. So it doesn't really bother me. The GMT Master to me is just like the ultimate go anywhere, do anything watch. And so if this can fulfill that in my collection, then what does it matter, really? So is it a keeper then? I'm not really sure, to be honest. If it were, in terms of the lume quality, the same as the Rolex, or if the bezel quality and the way that it feels, if it was just a better watch in general, if the clasp was better, and even if it cost a little bit more, I think I could keep this watch for a long time. But lume quality is big for me. I don't always wear a watch when I go to bed, but even when I don't, I have it on the nightstand and I look at it to get the time, and it annoys me that I can't do that with this watch. Even in a movie theater, sometimes by the end of the movie, it's already illegible, which is, I think, just not acceptable at this point in time. The clasp is also just a not very high quality. Yeah, I guess I'm just a little bit too spoiled by other watches in my watch collection at this point to accept these types of deficiencies. So I don't think it will be, but it probably will stay with me until I can find something to replace it. So, what do you think of the scoring? Is there anything about the rubric that you would like to see changed? Is there anything that you'd like to see me review? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for making it to the end. Bye.